Hi, I'm Wayne and this is Bassador Woodworking. In this video I'm going to go over the changes to the shop in this year and going into next, and also I'm going to go over this dust collection shroud I built for the Radial arm saw. I started by disconnecting the table saw from the main splitter of the dust collector. I then had to trim the PVC back so that the hose would fall right at the pillar of the Radial arm saw. I then connected a 45-degree elbow. The elbow is slightly smaller than the PVC, so I put a ring of VHB tape around the outer rim of the elbow and then inserted it into the PVC. I then wrapped the whole thing in a lot of tape, probably way too much tape. With the splitter installed, I could then trim the hose from the table saw and reconnect it. The table saw was once again plumbed into the dust collector, and I had my connection for the Radial arm saw reasonably close to where it would connect. I could then start on the Radial arm saw's dust collection shroud. I'm basing this off of other shrouds I have seen with a few modifications. Most dust collection I have seen built into Radial arm saws extend all the way to and become integral to the fence of the saw. I want to avoid that for the time being. This is a first draft of this system and I don't want to mess with my fence until I know that the dust collection shows promise. This shroud will be as simple as possible and will occupy the space behind the fence and under the guard of the saw. This will hopefully provide the added benefit of completely encapsulating the blade when it's in its furthest back position, and since the back of this saw is exposed, I felt it was probably a good idea. Everything is assembled using wood glue and 1-inch brad nails. Now, before I nail the top onto this, I should figure out placements for everything, and I'm going to need to put some internal baffles to kind of make it so that all of the air in this will push towards wherever I put the blast gate. Together. I've determined over here is going to be where the dust port's going to be. So I need to mark where that's going to be on here. I'm just going to go this. Here I am cutting some internal cross members. These will provide support to the lid and will also block off the chamber to the right of the blade, which should improve dust collection. I added a platen and a table to convert the slack belt sander into an edge sander. Here it is in action. More on this later. I used a 4-inch hole saw to cut the hole for the blast gate, and then used a 1-2-3 block to lay out my holes for the face of the shroud. I used 5/16" bolts to hold the block in orientation and then simply moved it up every couple of rows. I then used a countersink to clean up the holes. All that was left to do was to let the blade cut its kerf into the shroud, and this project would be done. Okay, so it didn't fit. I'm an idiot and was basing all of my measurements on the lowest point of the blade guard and did not notice that the locking mechanism for the motor pivot extends slightly lower, like a 1/16 of an inch. So the blade carriage could not go all the way back, rendering the shroud useless. I decided that the easiest way to fix it would be to trim the shroud so that it ends before the locking mechanism on the right side of the blade. This entire section of the shroud was only there for aesthetic reasons anyway. I just thought it would look more balanced if the blade cut into the center line of the shroud, but we'll just make it so that the thing's functional. Aesthetics are secondary. As this was my second time finishing the shroud, I decided this time to give it a quick sanding and a coat of clear shellac. Originally, I was going to have it so that the top would come off with screws and you could like service the inside if you ever needed to. That became kind of a pain in the ass, so I just glued and nailed the lid on, and I just have 2 Robertson screws just holding this down so that it can't shift while the saw is running. And that should be fine. I mean, if I ever need to fix anything with this, I will build a new one. This one is purely temporary until I can kind of dial in the design anyway. Now I just have to take the cover off this VHB tape and attach. Okay. You probably noticed in the past couple of videos that the shop's been very messy. Things have been scattered all over the place. Over the past month or so, I've been in a large-scale shop reorganization. I've been trying to kind of take stock of everything that I have, get rid of things I don't need or don't use, and then also just make the tools that I'm constantly reaching for more available to me. I'll do a quick little wraparound tour, but there's also been some new additions into the shop. I picked up an oscillating spindle sander on Black Friday. It was a really good deal. So I've been looking at one for a couple of years now. Decided like might as well just pull the trigger on it. I also picked up a new tool chest. It's just the cheapest one they had at Walmart. I just needed something to store all of my like different like calipers and things like that, so that they're not just getting covered in sawdust all the time. And then I just released the video a couple weeks ago of the new Radial arm saw. I built an edge sanding table for that. Let's go take a look at that real quick. So this slack belt sander attachment's actually been pretty useful, but I found that what I really wanted to do with it was use it as an edge sander. So I built a quick little table. It just clamps down to the tabletop, and it allows you to use the slack belt sander as an edge sander. It's dead simple. If people are interested in it, I can do a little bit more in depth, but for now, the thing just slots in there and then you just clamp it down with a couple of clamps. And the thing's great. It does exactly what I've needed it to do over the past couple of projects. I still have the laser engraver set up. That will probably get packed away at some point in the near future. It takes up a lot of table space, and I don't have a lot of table space in here. That's my main assembly table. So unless I can think of something to make it so that it folds down off the wall or something, I'm not sure whether the laser engraver lives in here full time. I do have extended rails and stuff like that I want to try out making a longer bed on it. And I've been talking to Algo Laser over the past month or so since I released the first video for them to let me know when the 10-watt module is available for that. And then I would take a look at it, but haven't heard back from them in a little while. I moved the Radial arm saw away from the wall that it used to be on, and now it's kind of in the center of the shop, perpendicular to the table saw. That's for two reasons. Mainly, it's where the dust collection is the strongest. I have dust collection going to the table saw, and now I have a Y going off to the Radial arm saw. It makes it a lot neater. This isn't a perfect dust collection system, but it is infinitely better than none. So I'm very happy with it so far. I'm going to kind of put it through its paces, see where it's deficient, and then adjust, make a second version of it. And second, it makes it so that I'm not making trips back and forth around the shop too much. Having this here, I'm hoping will make it so that it's not used as just a counter space when I'm not cross-cutting. This tends to be the tabletop that when I need to dump things off into the shop, this is where I drop things, and I want to get out of the habit of that, because it is arguably the most used tool in my shop, and it's stupid that I have to constantly move things off the tabletop to use the Radial arm saw. So continuing on to that, table saw is still in the same place. Been having a whole bunch of trouble with the Wixie DRO lately. I've tried throwing new batteries in it to no improvement, so I gotta take a look at that, see what's going on with it. It seems to work when it wants to work, but it doesn't ever save its zeroed out state anymore. So I hope it's not dead. I really liked it, and today I had to do a project using the tape measure against the blade again, and it sucked. So hopefully this thing starts working again. Who knows? Over at the compressor table, I moved a bunch of the sanders that I don't use as often across the room. That gave me room to put the new spindle sander here. Don't use it a whole bunch so far, but I'm thinking I'm going to use it a lot more when I'm doing guitar necks and things like that. I have a couple of guitars coming up, so that will prove out that theory. I also moved my Ryobi drill press over to here, off of the drill press cart. Mainly because it's not used a ton since I got the Craftsman one, and I'm thinking that it might become more handy to have it over here, and then I just set up the drill press cart to have all of my drill bit related stuff, so that's kind of just a central location. I have 3 drill presses in the shop, so that's kind of equidistant between all of them, because I will use the drill press that is more kitted out with all of their drill bits, and trying to like work against my own bad tendencies. Last weekend I built this super simple sanding organizer. I got tired of pulling the little cart that I was trying out, abandoned that altogether. It was good in theory, it just didn't work out because it ended up always just getting in the way when I was wheeling something else around. That's one thing that I've really found out is you cannot, like, it's cool to have a lot of things on casters and a lot of things mobile in the shop, but things need to have like a place where they belong, or everything that's on carts just ends up in the way of the other things that are on carts. So I'm starting to eliminate things that don't need to be mobile from having casters. I took my lathe off casters because it just became weird to have it on casters. I have my Shopsmith Mark V just kind of tucked underneath the table saw. I have almost no use for this. The main thing I used it for was like horizontal boring and things like that. But I can do that elsewhere. So if anyone in the Massachusetts area wants a Shopsmith Mark V, hit me up. I don't have really any of the attachments or anything. I have this. But if somebody can use it, hit me up. The Dado radial arm saw is still going strong. Right now I have a thin curved cross-cutting blade in there because I had a project I was doing multiple setups on. Pretty soon I'm going to be running this cool little blade in there. This is a StewMac fret cutting blade, so I don't have to hand cut guitar frets anymore. I don't know how wobbly that's going to be, so I also got some stabilizer discs to run on both sides of it, just in case. I've moved a bunch of random sanding stuff over here, just so that it's a little bit easier to get to. It used to be at the back of the assembly table, and it was just kind of a pain to grab things down, so hopefully this makes it a little bit easier to utilize. If not, I'm going to just get rid of these cabinets altogether. They were just thrown together with scrap wood. They're not anything special. It was one of those things, I was building it to the space that I had, and I'm no longer even in that space anymore, so I have just all these weird small cabinets that don't hold a whole lot, but they used to fit the other shop I was in perfectly, and that's no longer the case because I'm no longer in that shop. Outfeed table and router table are still going strong. I will probably replace this pretty soon. There's nothing wrong with it, I just don't like how loud the Harbor Freight router is. And I have other routers that are much quieter and that are just as capable. So I'm thinking at some point I'm going to buy a router plate and set it in here. And then just do a whole new tabletop on this because it's starting to get beat up a little bit. But it's sacrificial, it's meant to. It's been 5 years since I last swapped this out, so I think it's due. I often use my outfeed table as also my assembly table. So I've put all my assembly mallets in a holder just like the first video I did on this channel. And it's kind of been very handy in the few weeks it's been here already. It used to just be that I left whatever mallets that I used for those things just kind of like sitting underneath on the top shelf. This makes it so much easier. I have these like mallets that broke while I was setting them up, but they work perfectly fine for in the shop type stuff. And I've been very happy with it so far. This corner of the shop has likely seen the most change. I gave up the idea that this was ever going to be a functioning garage for cars. So I just kind of boarded off the garage door and just put up some moving blankets just to keep some of the cold air out during the winter here. And I put the lathe right there. It seems to be much better there. The lighting over here is a lot better, so actually using the lathe is enjoyable instead of annoying and scary. I've moved my bandsaw back over there. It's on a mobile cart now. Does make moving it out of the way a little bit easier and cleaning behind it. And then I have also moved the sanders that I don't use constantly over here. So like this Harbor Freight 4x36 and 6-inch disc sander. The disc sander I just use as a pencil sharpener. It's a very underpowered sander, but if you do tension everything correctly, it can do stuff. So I use the belt sander infrequently, but enough that it's not packed away. The belt sander that I built, I don't use all that much. And it's actually, I've just discovered I don't have that much of a use for it. It doesn't come up in things that I'm doing all that often. I thought when I was building it that, oh, this is a thing that's missing from my shop. Turns out not really. I'm still going to keep it because it has sentimental value. It was one of the first big projects I did on this channel. And it's a very powerful belt sander slash grinder. Like I've ground metal on this thing. Don't hugely recommend it because it throws sparks down into the bottom cabinet, which usually has sawdust in it. But you know, it's a thing. The metal cutting bandsaw I use all the time. It's the most used thing over here. And then I have some like odds and ends like this milling table. I don't really have a place to store it. It's very awkward shape to store, so it just kind of moves around to whatever table I'm not using at the time. I've got to do new blades on the Craftsman planer. I think I've said this in a previous video, but I would not recommend that planer if you're trying to get like a job site type planer. That 4-pole DeWalt one seems to be very popular and seems to be very well reviewed. This thing is not great. It's rickety, it kind of creaks a lot, and as you use it, there's the pieces that are plastic wear out a lot quicker than I would hope like it does, and it's not great. I wouldn't buy it again. I have my Ryobi miter saw that I don't use all that often because Radial arm saws exist, but I still have it for like outdoor projects and things like that. And then where the Radial arm saw used to be, I have the AMT 6-inch jointer, which I don't use it for every project, but the projects that I do use it for, it is excellent. So I just have it tucked away, still able to be used. I just have to pull it out from the wall a little bit, depending on the length of the stock I'm using, but still very accessible, and it still works great. Finally, I have the 15.5-inch Craftsman drill press that was seized when I got it, and I restored it. This thing is a beast. I've not encountered anything that this thing is not more than capable of working with. I did get some questions on that video of did I ever figure out something to use as a table lift, and I might have mentioned this in the past, but yes, I ended up attaching a trailer jack to it. So you just crank this, the table will come up, crank it the opposite way, the table will drop down, and then you just lock it in the same normal way. It does limit your travel a little bit, but not so much that it would ever affect the usage of this thing. I mean, technically you could drop this table all the way down to the floor, and if you want to drill holes in something very tall, you could do that. I can still do that just by taking the jack off of here, but it's one of those things realistically I'll never encounter that scenario. So I just crank it up to wherever I want it to be. Here is usually a good enough place. Tighten this thing down, and it's rock solid. I also installed an extender so that I can actually point the light at what I want. Instead, the way that this thing was designed is they just wanted you to stick a light bulb up there, and it would just kind of shine down in the general area. These little puck lights on an extender makes it so you can light up exactly what you want to light up. Really helps. And then my explosion corner still exists. I have moved over a lot of my stains and finishes in this metal cabinet over here. I have a smaller metal cabinet underneath it. This is a PA system that I have to fix. And then under this gigantic pile of jackets is the Harbor Freight drill press that doesn't get used really at all. And I do still have the power hacksaw. I will never get rid of it, but I don't really use it much at all, but I'm still never going to get rid of it. In the next year, I have some really cool projects coming down the pipe. Will and I have been working on a project for about the past 8 months. Hopefully that will be getting finished soon. Been filming the whole thing and I've been editing it in parts. Still going back and forth on whether to release one really long form video or a bunch of little parts. I can see the pros and cons of both, and I don't want to release them in both ways because then I kind of feel like that's double dipping in a way. And it's also like the things that I follow on YouTube, I kind of get disappointed if it's like, oh, I just watched this in parts and now here it is as one long thing, because I get excited for some kind of new video and then it's not a new video, it's things I've already seen. But anyway, but then I have some more shop infrastructure things that I've already kind of started putting the pieces together for. I have some in-the-house projects that are going to be coming up, and I also have a few more instrument builds that are going to be coming out. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe to keep up to date with new projects as they are released, and until next time, thank you.